every country that took drastic steps to contain coronavirus took an economic hit for it. Well, we took among the worst economic hits in the world. We're still reeling, except the difference is we didn't actually contain the coronavirus, right? We gave ourselves the economic hit, but we wasted it in terms of what we used that time for in terms of containing this pandemic. We blew it. Everybody took an economic hit, but look what they got for their time. They got their pandemics under control. We did not. We took the economic hit and we are still eating it in terms of the health impact of this thing with 121,000 dead Americans.
I protest face coverings. I am a healthy American. I used to be free. I am not a terrorist. I am not Antifa. I am not a sex slave that wears masks. I am not into sadomasochism and bondage. I am not a burglar. I am not a pandering politician like we see here, and here, and here, and here. I am a proud Trump Republican, yearning to be free again. Shame on all of you. Let liberty ring. God bless America. Land that
It is admittedly hard to say good evening at the end of a week that saw the worst day yet in terms of new coronavirus cases in this country, or the worst day ever by far in the state of Florida, with nearly 9,000 new infections there. It is tough to end the day with 32 states now showing rising case counts and just 7 with declining numbers. Harder still to look at that green line there for new cases in this country and compare it to the European Union in pink. Late today, EU diplomats told us that American travelers are unlikely to be allowed into member countries when they begin to open up. In a larger sense, though, the gap between the green and the pink lines on that graph there is what a failed national policy looks like, and tens of thousands of preventable deaths. That's right, deaths that the science shows us were preventable. Against that backdrop, the president's task force briefed today for the first time since the 27th of April, when the president, you may remember, suggested injecting disinfectant and shining light inside people's bodies to stop the virus somehow. He has since taken to flouting his own task force's guidelines at every turn, holding mass indoor rallies in hot zones in the country, not wearing a mask, a simple step, modeling behavior that gets people killed.
We slowed the spread. We flattened the curve. We saved lives.
Those were his words. We flattened the curve. It's a lie. Plain and simple, the line is not flat. In fact, it's going up. The vice president also talked about the skyrocketing cases in states such as Florida, Arizona, and Texas. Here they are, and here is the vice president's disingenuous explanation.
We want the American people to understand it's almost inarguable that more testing is generating more cases. To one extent or another, the volume of new cases coming in is a reflection of a great success in expanding testing across the country.
So we have more cases because we do the greatest testing. If we didn't do testing, we'd have no cases. Other countries, they don't test millions, so up to almost 30 million tests. So when you do 30 million, you're going to have a kid with the sniffles, and they'll say it's coronavirus, whatever you want to call it.
We are being lied to. Our freedoms are being taken forever, and I will not be muzzled like a mad dog. And I will not have my health destroyed because you idiots can't read truth. You go along with the lies that are the people who are trying to take down our freedoms and destroy our country. This is sick. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for being a part of this. And I will not be muzzled. And it's time for us to stand up for our freedoms. Because if we stand back and let these pieces of crap handle our freedoms, we will have nothing left. In fact, we'll end up being dead.
Sanjay, you heard the coronavirus task force today. You heard Vice President Pence say the U.S. is in a better place. People should not be upset. The reality is we had the highest number of confirmed cases in one day just yesterday, and we know that mortality, death, is a lagging indicator. After rates spike, people die.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a mind-numbing coronavirus briefing there, Jake. I got to tell you, I thought that there was going to be some acknowledgement that things are really as bad as they are. There was just a couple of hat tips to that. I think there was going to be some plan, some new plan that they would talk about, at least in terms of testing or in terms of public health measures in these hotspots, so to speak. But there really wasn't. It was more talking about the fact that despite the graph that you're seeing on the screen, where we're now at the highest number of cases since this pandemic began, there was more talk about how things are better than they look, and they are not. I mean, the numbers don't lie here. All 50 states are reopening safely and responsibly. That was one of the first things that was said. That is not true. I don't know, if you look at the criteria specifically, that any state met the criteria for opening. And all of them are talking about reopening before they should. They talked about the fact that we have greatly expanded testing. We're still probably at 10% of where we need to be. They said it's been 45 days since we started to slow the spread. The spread is not slow. It's not slowed down, obviously, if you look at these numbers.
I thought you guys weren't with BLM.
I moved nowhere. What you gonna do? Not a fucking thing. Like that they here defend fucking criminals and not our children.
You sit down and suck my cock. Why are you sitting down and suck my cock, you nasty little fuck?
Our fucking ancestors fought for that, bitch. We can wear whatever the fuck we want.
Why are you out here? They are veterans.
That's our fucking people.
You have a permit to be over there, not out here.
These are our people.
Boy, you gonna suck my dick while you're sitting here in front of my cock? Is that what you're doing? I'm not gonna have a conversation. You know why? You have BLM on your shirt. Guess what? All conversations are off. You have aligned yourself with domestic terrorism. You have aligned street! Get out of the street! I'm pushing people! No way. Wow. Where's the line? Where's the line?
Black Lives Matter protest coming up Irving Park.
Watch me smash that shit. Fuck you. Yeah, you are a stupid nigger.
Oh, that's...
Hey, don't fucking...
Whoa! Yeah!
If this Times report is correct, this means that U.S. intelligence has concluded that Vladimir Putin is offering bounties for the scalps of American soldiers in Afghanistan. Not only offering money to people who kill Americans, but some of the bounties that Putin has offered have been collected, meaning the Russians at least believe that their offering cash to kill Americans has actually worked to get some Americans killed. The Russians at least believe, if these bounties have been paid out, that the people to whom they have offered this money have successfully gone out and killed American soldiers because of it, and the Russians have therefore paid for that service. And President Trump was told about this in March, and he has done nothing about it.
I don't know, in fact, what's worse, that he knew and did nothing, or that he didn't know. And the incompetence of the administration is such that we see it in the consequences of coronavirus, where 125,000 Americans are dead and many, many more to come, a shattered economy, the corruption, the indecency, the stench of this administration will linger through the ages. And everyone associated with it, who's been complicit, who's collaborated with it, who has defended the indefensible, the stench will linger around them too. The Tom Cottons, who have betrayed the very soldiers that he once led in combat through his complicit silence. The Lindsey Grahams, a reserve colonel in the United States Air Force. All of them. This is a disgusting moment in American history and in American life. For the first time, we have an American president who simply refuses to defend the country, the Constitution, and gets on his knees with deference to a hostile foreign powers autocratic leader. What a rancid moment in the life of the American nation.